Good morning, and thank you so much for being here. I know this topic is a little bit heavier, but it's one we have to talk about. And I just want to start, I know you clapped for me, but so many of you in this room have been doing civil rights work since before I was even born. And so it's really thanks to you that I even have the vocabulary to have this conversation. So thank you for your work. And we have a long way to go, but we have come a long way thanks to you. I grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina, and in the South, right? Like our vegetables have meat in them, like real Southern. And I had two passions, school and sports. If I wasn't studying, I was on the field or on the track. And I knew that I wanted to go to a school that was academically rigorous, but I also really wanted to play sports. So I ended up at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill because it was in-state and because I also didn't want to go into debt. And I actually really wanted to go to school in California, but I wasn't that good at soccer. I wasn't Abby Wambach, who you'll hear from later. So I ended up playing actually rugby at UNC Chapel Hill. And it was the first time I called my mom and told her she was right. It's a great Mother's Day present. Call your parents and say, you know best. And so I went to UNC, and I loved my experience. But as you saw in the film, very soon after I had arrived, I experienced sexual assault. And I was, like I said, school, sports. I liked control. I liked to be in control of my life and know what was happening. And I always thought if something happened to me, I would report it. That's how I was raised. But I didn't, and I blamed myself. And I only told somebody after another friend came to me and shared that she had had a similar experience, and I was struggling in my classes. And so I told somebody at the university, and when I reported my sexual assault to her, she looked at me and told me that rape was like a football game, that I was the quarterback in charge of my own experience, and how would I have prevented it? What would I have done differently? And at 18 years old, I didn't know all the trauma-informed language, but I knew that wasn't the right response. And so I worked to educate others. I worked to better my own university. And then I graduated, and I started working and teaching at the University of Oregon. And I started hearing student stories that sounded exactly like mine years later. So my colleague, Andrea Pino, reached out to me. She had also been assaulted at the university and said, we've got to do something. And so we started digging back. We started looking into history. We discovered a law called Title IX. And a lot of people think Title IX is just about sports and equity. And it has gotten a lot done in that arena as well. But all Title IX says is that regardless of your sex, and now it's been interpreted to mean gender as well, you have an equal access to education. So I told you I like school, big nerd, started studying case law, found a case in the 1970s called Alexander versus Yale. 5 women filed a complaint against their institution because they were being sexually harassed by their male peers and professors. Looking back to the 70s, Andrea, myself, and a few others said if they could file a complaint for being harassed, sitting next to your perpetrator, not going to the library at night, all of these things, sexual assault should not be a part of your educational experience. So we decided to file this Title IX complaint. We're young 20-somethings, no law degree, no money, but we said we're going to do this. And so we called a few media outlets, and they laughed. They said there's absolutely no way that a bunch of students can take on a 200-year-old university. 3 months later, it was on the front page of the New York Times. And when that happened, students from all around the country started reaching out saying, me too, me too, me too. And that's when we realized how big this was an epidemic. UNC was a microcosm, and we didn't file this big complaint to make it look bad. We did it to show others that they have a right to a safe education. And what happened at our university was just a microcosm of our larger culture.